Hi, I'm Linda Mechner, your host for Why Eating Healthy is Not Enough. I'm here today with Dr. Shiroko Sokitch, who I have known for, God, it's got to be 20 years. And Shiroko has been such an incredible help to me in my own healing journey. And one of the main reasons why I actually got into this field at all, because she's such an inspiration. And I'm just so excited to bring her to this stage, so to speak. Anyway, welcome, Shiroko. And maybe you could just share a little bit about yourself and how you got on your own path.
Thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be here. Well, long story, but I'll make it as short as I can. My whole journey began when I was 5, really. And my great-grandmother collapsed in front of me, and she was my best friend, and she was the person who at the time was taking care of me because my mom was a single mom and was working to support her kids, and my grandma was busy with her own business. And so my great-grandma was that person for me. And she collapsed in front of me, and they took her to the hospital. And a few days later, my mom came and told me that she was dead. And I didn't know what that meant. So she said, well, her heart stopped beating and that I would never see her again. And I had already lost my dad. My parents had split up when I was 3. And as a child, I never got to see him again. And so at that point, I had already had significant loss, and I'm devastated. And at the same time, something happened inside of me that was like, got to solve this problem. And I had this vision of how to get her heart to start beating again. And you know, I imagined this machine that would get her the heart beating. Not that I knew anything about medicine, obviously, at age 5. But that day is the day that I decided to become a doctor. And it stayed with me throughout my childhood. And I, of course, ended up as a doctor. And I remember the first time I got to save a life in the emergency room as a 3rd-year medical student. We had a patient who came in with a gunshot wound, and we saved his life. Like, we stopped his bleeding, and we saved his life. And it was so thrilling. So I decided at that moment that I wanted to be a surgeon, although until then I had no interest in being a surgeon. I had an interest in herbs, and I had an interest, like, as a child, I grew an herb garden. I believed in food and healing and all those kinds of things. I don't know where that came from, but that's what I believed in. And then all of a sudden I'm in surgery, and I'm doing my residency, and I began, like, to see already, even this is like 30 years ago, I began to see that patients had problems that even the best of medicine could not address. And especially because I dealt with people that were in burn unit and like pain and severe, severe pain, you know, around surgeries or burns. And I hate pain. And it became my personal vendetta, like I'm going to solve this pain problem. And so I found a book that somebody gave me called The Web That Has No Weaver. And I was kind of like at that, like I was 27 then, and I was kind of having my first midlife crisis of like, what's the meaning of life if I'm not a surgeon? What do I do if I don't love surgery? And I didn't love surgery, and I felt like I wasn't addressing the problems that I wanted to address. So I read this book on acupuncture, and I fell in love with it. And the philosophy of Chinese medicine is that the idea that you're made up of energy, and that energy travels through your body in certain patterns. And when it's out of balance, there are problems. And so I was like, it was this beautiful, beautiful concept, this beautiful idea of healing. And it brought me back to that whole belief that I had in healing, you know? And so I left my surgical residency, worked in the ER, ended up working in the ER for 10 years temporarily, and went to acupuncture school. So like I went to acupuncture school while I was working in the ER, and then I moved to California and opened my practice, and all of those things kind of just took time. But I've been in practice now blending Chinese and Western medicine for 27 years this month. So.
Wow, that's so incredible. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things I really love about you is that you do have this background in Western medicine and regular, you know, and my uncle was a doctor, my grandfather was a doctor. So I sort of, you know, come from this very straight-laced medical belief system.
Mm.
Uh, but then healing is this totally other thing. Like what healing
Mm.
is, you know, it is more energetic and it is more, you know, it's not so cut and dry. And I just love that you have both of those perspectives. And you just got certified in functional medicine, or tell me about
Yeah.
that.
What is functional medicine,
Yeah,
or?
maybe you could explain what functional medicine is. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. So Chinese medicine, I'm going a little backwards, but
Yeah.
it's because they blend so beautifully together. But Chinese medicine is based on your organ systems and how your organs work, and a balance, and finding a balance. And to me, functional medicine is Chinese medicine in Western language. But functional medicine is based on the idea that we have systems rather than organs, and that those systems, when they go out of balance, have problems, and that we want to bring them back into balance. So similar to Chinese medicine, although we don't, in functional medicine, we don't say energy. And the systems are like your hormone, your endocrine system, your digestive system, your immune system. And it really, on that level, makes great sense, because then then you can get systems in balance, and you look at the whole picture of a system, rather than, let's say you have a heart attack. Like in conventional medicine, in my training, if you had a heart attack, we looked at your heart. If you had a liver problem, we looked at your liver. We didn't put it together with the other organs that support it, or work as systematically with it. So for me, functional medicine is the perfect adjunct to Western medicine, or to my Chinese medicine practice. And, you know, over the years, I've studied functional medicine kind of haphazardly. And I decided just like a couple years ago that I wanted to really put it together, and really be cohesive with it, and put the two together. And so, yeah, I became certified.
Which is fantastic.
So, yeah.
So tell me, like when you start to work with a patient, you know, sometimes people have these mystery illnesses, or they've been to every doctor and they can't quite get a handle on it. They just are at a loss. What are some of the ways that you help them, or that you work with them to help them bring things into balance, to help them on their healing journey?
Well, I do a lot. But so I see a lot of patients who have mystery illness, and surprisingly, there's more than 30 million Americans who have mystery illness, and then of course there's way more people who have things that are undiagnosed and haven't been titled as having a mystery illness. But one of the reasons I love Chinese medicine is because Western medicine has a certain language, has a certain approach, and we look for diseases that fit certain patterns. Well, if you have another way of looking at patterns, then you have another possibility for diagnosis. And so in Chinese medicine, there are patterns as well, patterns of dysfunction, patterns of imbalance. And so when this system doesn't work, then I can use this system to understand what's going on with someone, and then I can use the functional medicine testing to understand it even better. Mm-hmm. So that's how I work, is I start with just listening to somebody, and I go all the way back to maybe birth, like were they breastfed? What kind of food did they grow up with? What kind of environment did they have? How traumatic was their childhood? Because emotional trauma is now being even recognized by Western physicians as a major cause of chronic illness and under big imbalance. And so I look at everything. How do they eat? How do they exercise? How long have they been feeling a certain way? And what is going on in that way that they're feeling, you know? And then I do an exam, and in Chinese medicine, I feel the pulse and I look at the tongue, and that tells me about which organs are out of balance. And then based on what's out of balance. And then I add tests in based on what story they tell me. And so, for example, let's say that they have gas and bloating and pain or digestive symptoms a lot, but I actually talked to a woman today who's had diarrhea for 25 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And nobody has done a stool test. How did that happen? How did that happen? You know, but the stool test that even in conventional medicine, I would think that they would have done a stool test or a colonoscopy or something.
Right.
And I haven't seen her as a patient yet. It just was a 15-minute consult that I did with her. So she's going to book and I'll find out more. But things like that people go through, and maybe they even accept it as it's okay for me to go through this like this. There are answers. There are possibilities of healing, you know, and so with her, for sure, we'll do a stool test. She said it all started after she had traveled to some, you know, third world country. And so you'd think that
right.
the stool test would have been one of the first things that was done. But then once you've had something like that for so long, then it's not the primary condition, like whatever it was, the parasite or some infection that she had is maybe long gone, but now there's a pattern in her nervous system that's stuck. And it can't get unstuck. And that's where Chinese medicine is perfect, because I can help reset her nervous system so that possibly that whole thing will correct itself.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And, you know, earlier you were saying something about, you know, when there's systems that work together, right? Like that if sometimes you can't figure it out, but if you can handle the three things, and
I'll tell you what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me those three things. I like it.
So based on my many years of what I do, I've come up with this theory, what I call my triangle of wellness. And even before I did functional medicine, like one of the reasons when I left surgery that I loved Chinese medicine was because of the possibility that there were answers when there was a mystery. And there have always been mystery problems that Western medicine could not answer. And so with Chinese medicine and blending the two, I came up with this thing where your hormones, your nervous system, so your brain and your nerves and your immune system, I call the triangle of wellness. And even if I don't have an answer for whatever is the diagnosis, by using this triangle of wellness, I'll get their hormones in balance, I'll get their nerves in balance, and I'll get their immune systems functioning. That's sort of the bedrock. That's the foundation of anything working. If you have hormones, nervous system, and immune system functioning, then you are able to heal. Then your body will be able to do what it needs to do in order to get well. And I come from the premise of your cells know how to be healthy. They have all the tools that they need. So something threw them out of balance. So what is that something? If we can find that something, that's great. But if we can't find that something, if we give them all the food that they need, the hormones, the nervous system, and immune system, you give them all of like this environment that they need, then those cells will remember their health and come back.
Yeah, you know, it's so, I mean, simple, not simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in terms of balancing hormones, what are some of the key points to balancing hormones? And
hormones are a big story, right? So we have an organ that produces hormones in every one of our chakras. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
And so to me, hormones are the connection, are the physical messenger from our spirits. So and so you have a pituitary and pineal gland, you have your thyroid, you have your thymus, which is in your chest, starting at the top, right? And then you have your pancreas, and you have your adrenal glands, and you have your ovaries or testes, whichever. So those are all the main hormone producing glands, and they all do something different and significant, but they're the communications. they send signals out so to help your body get in balance. So especially, so most common, of course, we talk about women's hormones and the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, things like that. And then we talk about the adrenals and we talk about the thyroid. And there's a complex of imbalances that go together sort of for a lot of people who have what we call mystery illness. There's a certain group, there's a certain set of symptoms that I see like over and over and over again. They usually accompanied by really severe fatigue, anxiety and depression, possibly symptoms in their guts, possibly symptoms with, periods being out of whack, or perimenopausal symptoms. And, there's sometimes weight issues. So all of those things go together with sort of a complex of hormone imbalances that include your thyroid, your adrenals, and your ovaries. So that's very common, but there are other hormonal issues, like if your pancreas doesn't work, you not digest food, or you could not be able to balance blood sugar. So there's a lot that is involved.
So, part of the point of this summit is to really highlight some of the reasons why eating healthy is not enough. So maybe you could shine a light on what you see in your medical practice about where, people are over-reliant on food when it's really not a food issue. I mean, of course, it always comes back to food, but at the same time, it's so there's so much more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anybody who has a mystery illness, is going to eventually come up to food as one of the issues, right? And I'm really glad that you doing this summit and asking that question of why food is not enough, because I've always felt like food is not enough. But of course, it's partly because of what I do, because I take care of people who have tried food and it's not enough, right? And they're can't lose weight despite how well they eat. There are people who feel ill despite of how well they eat. And so it is a big question, right? That's why it's part of why I wrote my book, because there's all these elements, right? So I say 50% of everything that we do has a physical component, and the physical being the medical interaction, the lifestyle, which is how you eat and how you exercise and those sorts of things. But the other 50% is emotional and spiritual. So there's this whole component that is connected to perhaps emotional traumas, perhaps emotional stresses. And one of the reasons I love Chinese medicine so much is that it combines the spirit and the emotion, and each organ has physical factors, emotional factors, and spiritual components. I'll give you an example, like the liver. The liver regulates the smooth flow of energy in your whole body. So things like neck tension and headaches and even high blood pressure, that's the flow of energy in your body. And it also regulates your menstrual cycles. So for a lot of people, it obviously has an effect on how they feel. It deals with the emotion of anger. And it's the master sergeant of getting things done. So the liver is really the organ in our bodies that we in the West use the most, right? We're on the go, trying to get things done all the time. And so it's the organ that deals with stress in the end. And so if you have like tension in your neck and shoulders, or you get migraines, or you have period problems like cramps or PMS, or you just get really irritable all the time, and that irritation can also affect your digestion, because you can get gas and bloating, and the irritable bowel symptoms can come from your liver being out of balance. I'm an expert on liver imbalance because it's my personal experience of my health issues is always liver imbalance. But so that's just one example. So in my book, I talk about the other factors besides the diet and exercise factors. So one is the triangle of wellness, like balancing the physical is important. Getting your hormones, your nervous system, and your immune system in balance, finding the root cause, those are all important things. But there's also love. And people who don't feel well, or people who are struggling with their health, they don't love themselves. They don't love their body. They're mad at their bodies. You know, most of the people who come to me, they're betrayed, you know, like, my body's not behaving like it should be. I'm mad at it. It's betraying me. You try to have to, if changing your attitude can help. Just focusing on love, getting a practitioner that you feel good with, which is why I always give a 15-minute free consultation, so that they can see if they feel good with me as a practitioner, because maybe you don't, you know, and there are millions of practitioners, or thousands at least, and you want to find the right one. It's just kind of like dating the right person. You have to have a connection. You have to have that caring connection in order for healing to sort of be plugged in. There's all elements of love. So your cells are connected by the love, you know, so like love is the healing force of the universe, in my opinion. And so that's the first key in my 7 keys, is because love is so vitally important to getting well. Then the second is the physical, then finding your unique lifestyle, and then learning to listen to your body to fine tune your unique lifestyle, because you are unique. Your body is unique. It is different. And what do you do in order to listen to your body, and how do you take that information to work for yourself? And then the 5th key is emotional, and the importance of how your emotions affect your health. And they do. In Chinese medicine, we say disease comes from either inside your body or outside. And outside is things like infections and viruses and things that the wind drags in, as we say. But the things that come from inside are all emotions. And each organ has an emotional function and a physical function as well, you know. And then my last 2 keys are the 6th and the 7th. One is the idea that if you have a health challenge, that it's a hero's journey. Instead of approaching it like, oh, I just want to get back to who I was before, which a lot of people say to me, what I have to say is, you will never be the same person again after you've been through this. Whatever it is. If you've had a mystery illness, or you've had a struggle with your health, you are on a journey. And if you start to look at it as you're a hero and you're learning, you're on an adventure, and you're gonna, just like, I love hero movies, which is why this is in my book. But there's always an end result, right? We're looking for something, and it always looks impossible at some point. And it always looks like you're never going to get where you want to go. But you have a team, you have your little group of people that are on the journey together with you, and you're on this mission to get well. So part of your team is your healing team, but part of your team is also your family and your friends and the people that you love who support you in your getting well. And then the last is trusting the process. Oh, I should say that the 6th is also about never giving up. Whatever it is that you've been through, don't give up on yourself. Don't stop looking for answers. There's going to be something that you find that will give you some relief, some answers, some support. And then the 6th is when 7th is trusting the process. And trusting the process is really to recognize that whatever journey you're on, you're a spirit that lives in this body, and your spirit wants something. And you have to trust that what your spirit is doing is in your best interest. And, you know, sometimes unraveling the mystery and finding the answers is very difficult. I've been through this myself, and on every level of my life, emotionally, physically, in my social life, in every single way, I've been through this level of having to trust that life is leading me in the right place. But if you put all those things into place, then you start to have a different experience of your healing. It may still take a long time, you know, unraveling all the little pieces and getting the right answers for what could be causing it, and taking the right things to get to the right place. But if you put all that into place, then you begin to feel like you're on a journey, and that you're the hero of that journey.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I know for me, my whole life has been a journey. And, you know, as long as I look at it as a positive thing, I have no regrets. You know, it's the times that I think, oh, but if it wasn't that way, you know,
Mm.
it would have, my life would be so different. But, you know, I like my life, so it's all good.
It's when you don't like your life that it becomes difficult to believe that it's okay.
Well, hopefully we all like our lives. And if we don't, it's a matter of flipping our mindset, right?
Right. Yes. There's always that short-term versus long-term gain, and to set your mind to the long term. And it's subtle, like how we eat is not always instant results, right? Like eating well can, like you said, can take months, can take, you know, somebody who's been maybe drinking diet sodas for 20 years wants to lose weight. The chemical effect of those diet sodas may take years to alter that person's physiology, you know. So even if they eat well for your long time, their chemical physiology has been altered by having had those diet sodas. And so it may take longer. And so the reward isn't instant.
Yeah.
You know, and is your commitment to being well enough? And that's an individual question. And to me, that's a moment by moment decision. So it's like, okay, I'm going to make that decision right now. And then I'm going to make that decision again. And then I'm going to make that decision again. I remember I've been through times when I was in my 40s, I had a period of time where I was 20 pounds over the weight that I believed I needed to be. And I exercised and I ate well, and I could not lose that 20 pounds, like nothing. Well, then I injured my knee and I couldn't exercise because I kept hurting it. And I did something with my diet. I think I went to like 80% vegetables, because even though I was eating well, I wasn't really on a low carb diet. And so, and my ex-husband, I think at the time, was like, he went on a diet. So I was eating less, but it wasn't the eating that made a difference. It was not exercising, because I had exercised too hard. Because I injured my knee, I couldn't exercise as much, and I could only do certain gentle things. And I lost 20 pounds, and it seemed like it was overnight. It was just all of a sudden 20 pounds was gone. And I had been trying for like a year, you know, and I know a lot. So I did all those things. But that's what happens sometimes, even when you're like some other condition, if you're not well and you're trying to get well, and you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and you do all these different things, and it doesn't look like anything's working. And then one day you wake up and you feel better. And you think it's all of a sudden overnight. No, it's that all those things fell together, and they were all like discombobulated for a while, and then slowly just the right tiles fell into place, and suddenly you feel better. And it looks like it's suddenly, or suddenly you've lost 20 pounds, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how it's one of the things that happens, is like just the right factors come together.
Yeah, I think that's so true. The analogy I use a lot is the rowboat with the holes in it. If you have a rowboat with 20 holes and you plug 1 or 2 holes, you probably are not going to get a dramatically better result. You know, you kind of have to plug all or almost all the holes to, you know, to have a functional vehicle.
It's a great analogy. Yeah. You'd be bailing water out. Even if you're one hole, you'd be bailing water out the whole time.
Right. Bailing being coffee and sugar. And Advil.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, I know that you have a fabulous gift to share with everybody. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
The hero's journey?
Yeah.
So it's basically describes what I talked about today, is how to take yourself on a journey as a hero, and for you to use those tools in order to bring yourself to a place where you feel better. And actually, my book is full of tips and suggestions of how to heal when it seems impossible. So each of the 7 keys has several pages at the end of do this, do this, do this, you know, try this, try this. So there's many suggestions, many ideas for how to get well.
Fabulous. I've got my copy right here. Love it.
Yay, thank you. Yeah.
Shiroko, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and your perspective. I think it's so incredibly valuable, and I just thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been delightful.
All right, I'll see you later. See you later, everyone.